headline, violence involving men and boys is quite common, and today we look at how the media covers issues facing men. Hello and welcome to Media and Society. I'm your host, Alicia Nhlanhla Jali. Now this is a show where we take a look at the intersection between the media and you, the society. And of course, this show would not be complete without your input. So please give us a call on 011 714 0661, alternatively 714 0662, or X us using the hashtag SABC Media and Society. Good morning. Now, discussing topics such as abuse, domestic violence, depression and anxiety is inherently complex and emotionally charged. It often brings forth feelings of pain, confusion, shame, inadequacy, as well as isolation. However, for men, navigating these issues can be particularly daunting due to entrenched stereotypes, fear, misinformation, as well as societal pressures. In South Africa, where shocking headlines of violence involving men and boys are distressingly common, the media's role in addressing these issues becomes quite crucial. Yet, despite being a primary source of information and relatability for many, the media often falls short of adequately addressing the anguish that is suffered by men and boys. Now, this begs the question, is the media doing enough to address as well as alleviate this alarming state of affairs? Well, joining us to discuss this is Joshua Manyelwa, Empowerment spokesperson, Lebogang Ramofoko, Executive Director at Oxfam, Craig Wilkinson, Father and Nation CEO, Sandile Memela, who is a writer and cultural critic, as well as Siabulela Gentile from Not In My Name International. Gentlemen, a very good morning to each and every one of you. Let's start with you here in studio while we sort out my panelists who will be joining us on Teams. Craig, tell us a bit about your organization, Father and Nation, and what it is that you guys do very quickly. Good morning.
Thanks, Alicia. Great to be here. Well, Father Nation is a non-profit organization, and we focus on men. Our belief is that we can heal and restore men to be good fathers, mentors, role models, we can heal our nation. So we do a lot of work. I've written extensively on fatherhood, on positive masculinity, and also on gender-based violence. A lot of the work being done on gender-based violence is really focusing on awareness and then on assisting victims. Both are crucial, but there's a big gap in the sense of why is it happening? Why is abuse happening? No boy is born an abuser. No one comes out of his mother's womb DNA wired to abuse or be racist or misogynist. None of these things. Something goes wrong in the journey from boy to man. So we at Father Nation focus on healing, restoring and equipping and teaching men how to be good men.
Look, let's talk about this. I mean, Siabulela, in terms of how you write, let's talk about how the coverage towards GBV, gender-based violence, is actually echoed throughout the media spaces. Particularly, you'll find horrific headlines often sidelining the man as the monster. As Craig is saying, nobody's born that way. So how do you then strike a fine balance in ensuring that the perpetrator, even though he might be a man, also gets proper as well as adequate coverage in the media?
Good morning. Thank you so much. I think on my side, I wouldn't blame media that much. I think the media is doing its part. We don't speak enough about issues affecting men as activists on the ground. And I appreciate the work that has been done by gentlemen like Craig here, who focus mainly on issues affecting men. And again, like them, I do believe, I'm also a social constructionist. I believe that something happens from boy to man, and this involves some, cultural, historical, cultural, and social intersections somewhere. And then because you can go to an hospital, we can't say this one is going to be a rapist, this one is going to be a violent man. However, in our discourse and in our activism, we often highlight the issues that are perpetrated against women, rightfully so, but more often at the expense of the issues that are happening against men or on men. And so that responsibility then becomes the responsibility of the society at large. And in all honesty, the media has been doing magnificent work in covering GBV cases. I know that with the work that I do, SABC is always assisting us, and other other news outlets. And so I think the media is doing very good work. Of course, there could be more that,
that
can be done.
And we'll get into the nitty-gritties of that.
Yeah.
Sandile, look, I want to hear from you. Do you think, we as the media are failing our men and boys?
I'm very happy to be here and thank you for the privilege and honor. Failing media failing boys and men, no doubt, and it's all deliberate. You must remember that the media is the fourth estate, which makes it part of the system. And the system that we're talking about is patriarchal. And what I want to point out is that this patriarchy is not only against women, it's also against men. And one very brutal and violent way that illustrates that is, look at what patriarchy did to the 34 men in Marikana. That's patriarchy. And it would be misleading for anyone to assume that just because you are a man, you are a patriarch, or if you are a man, you are not a victim of violence by patriarchal men. And it's very important to emphasize that point. Now, in terms of the media and its role, I alluded to the fact that it's part of the system. And part of the system is it to perpetuate certain stereotypes about specific sex, like men are supposed to be violent. And then the media will, spin that kind of perception. And then in a way you find that the fact that women are also violent falls into a blind spot. And that is not a mistake, because he who controls the media controls the mind, and he who controls the mind controls how society sees itself. And I don't buy into the notion, which is becoming fact in South Africa, that only men are violent. Yes, they are, but both men and women are victims of that.
Absolutely.
If we wake up on a Monday morning and go to the mortuary, we'll see both bodies of women who were abused and killed by men, but there'll be more men who were killed and abused by other men. So we need to tread carefully and maybe refrain from reducing these two numbers and look at people as people, because whether you are a man or a woman or a child, it's a human life, and that's what we should be concerned about.
Craig, very interesting views, right? I mean, particularly in a country where we've got different cultures. I mean, Sandile says, it's the inequality in society, and Siabulela still blames, the cultural divide as well.
Yes.
So what do you think distresses men the most, particularly when they look into the headlines and with the research at your disposal, which actually pushes them into this corner where they feel that they do not have a voice in society?
Look, I think there are a number of factors that cause men to be violent and abusive. And there's no doubt that violent crime is perpetrated primarily by men. But something has gone wrong. So the one thing is the woundedness of the man. A man needs to grow up in a society and in a family where there are older men modeling to him what good, true, authentic masculinity is.
Role models.
Role models.
Yeah.
That provide an example of what it means to be a good man, but also discipline and validation, the whole range of things that a good father gives to his kids. South Africa, we're growing up in a society where upwards of 60% of boys and girls are growing without a father.
True.
That's one of the primary causes of men behaving badly. They don't have role models, and they don't have this. You see, masculinity is imparted by a man to a boy. As a father, I cannot teach my daughter how to be a woman.
True.
I can teach her many things, but not that. A mother cannot teach a boy how to be a man. She can teach him all kinds of things. And look, single moms in this country are heroes. I mean, they are doing the most unbelievable job in the most unbelievably difficult circumstances. But the absence of older men and role models validating, healing, teaching, training, disciplining boys is massive. That's the one thing. The other thing is wounded masculinity through lack of fatherhood. It's not the mother's fault, it's the father's. The other thing is the narrative that we have around masculinity. And for me, there are 5 big lies. Sex, power, money, big boys don't cry, and men are trash. Those are 5 terrible things that boys get hit with. The more sexual partners I have, the more of a man I am.
Oh,
Wrong.
yeah.
The more power I have, I need power to be a man. I need money to be a man. And so and big boys don't cry. All lies. And then men are trash. Men are not trash. Men are not toxic. Wounded, damaged men become very toxic and very dangerous and very trashy. But if we raise young boys with a narrative that you are trash, they're not going to turn out to be good men because they're being trashed before they even get a chance to be men. So if you take the narrative around men and you take the lack of fatherhood in our society, of wounded men who have a wrong idea of masculinity, and the third thing is unemployment. Men are absolutely, you see, an unemployed man is a desperate man. He feels like Chris Rock said it beautifully. He said, only women, children, and pets are loved unconditionally. Men have to bring something. That's the narrative.
You're seen as a non-contributor to society.
You're seen as useless. You're seen as disposable. And a man who feels useless and disposable, is a bit unfathered, has a wrong narrative about man, is a dangerous man.
Let's leave it there for now. We're going to take a quick ad break, and after that, I'm going to rope in our panelists who are joining us on Teams. This is Media and Society. Do stay with us.
Do you think that the law is equal and balanced when it comes to protection of men, when it comes to GBV?
It's very unbalanced.
And why would you say it's unbalanced?
I've seen situations where a woman could lay a hand on a man, and when a man runs to the police will actually say, you're not man enough, which is not very good. I've experienced that. I cannot say much about that, but it's something I've seen for myself.
No, angicabangi kanjalo because mongathi uyabheka most of the time umjida aye police station and then bamquestiona about izinto such as rape. They don't take you serious, so I don't think there's equal protection.
No, there isn't, because if you're a man and you speak out about GBV or you speak out about being abused, you get victimized and stigmatized, and society will see you as a weak man. So the scales aren't balanced.
I'd say no, purely because we really don't know. Like if it were to happen to someone that I know of or myself, I really would not know where to go, whilst there are many different organizations that work for GBV against females. So I really wouldn't know where to go. So I would say no.
Welcome back to Media and Society. Now, the headlines are clear. South Africa faces a very significant issue of violence directed towards women and children. Now, this is a problem we cannot afford to ignore. However, amidst the commendable efforts, though still insufficient, undertaken by the media to shed light on and educate about these issues, it's worth considering whether we might also be neglecting the struggles that are faced by men. Is it possible that downplaying men's challenges actually contributes to perpetuating abuse in our society? Perhaps by prioritizing education, awareness, and early intervention targeted at all genders, we can actually effectively decrease the prevalence of abuse in our communities. Now, these are the questions that we are here to ask of you, the viewer, and of course our guest this morning. And we're still very pleased to be joined by Joshua Manyelwa, Empowerment Spokesperson, Lebogang Ramafoko, Executive Director at Oxfam, Craig Wilkinson, Father and Nation CEO, Sandile Memela, who is a writer and cultural critic, as well as Siabulela Gentile from Not In My Name. Let me go to my guest on Zoom. Joshua, a very good morning to you. So I suppose we want to understand, what do you think is basically, what makes a headline different in society where violence is actually perpetuated by a female versus a male? Talk to us about the discrepancy in terms of coverage there.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning to even to your listeners. First, I must say that men are in the crossroad. We are in the crossroad. We don't know how to behave as men, but also media, what is projected about men, even in movies and sitcoms, is that men are strong, men are providers, men must have money, and all those things. Those things have been projected to a point where men embraces that. And as a man, if you find that you can't provide, that can bring a whole lot of stress to as a man. And find that sometimes as a man, if you cannot protect, that can also bring a whole lot of stress. So there was this narrative that has been pushed by media to men to say, as a man, you are the provider. There's a statement in the must. But the truth of the matter, if my wife, she's a CEO of a company, she earns six-figure low salary, and I'm only earning 5,000 rand, does that make me less of a man because I can't provide financially in my house? So I'm just thinking that the media, it's failing men by not also putting a spotlight when men are abused, because we're thinking men are strong, we think men, they don't feel pain. So I think somehow also media does fail men, because there's this narrative that men are strong and men can stand any pain.
Who sold this narrative to men that boys cannot cry? I don't think there has been active campaigns where boys were encouraged not to speak, so to say. So I suppose the question for you then, do you think that the boy child is largely excluded in social programs that create awareness around, dealing with daily issues and challenges of life?
Yeah.
Who is the question to?
It's for you, Lebogang.
You know, I get very uncomfortable about this conversation because it's not rooted in the systemic issues that we are dealing with. And it becomes, even in the phrasing, this one versus this one. The truth of the matter is both men and women are socialized in patriarchy. And patriarchy as a system has positioned, before you even get into the role of the media, gender relations in a particular way. And when the reality does not match what patriarchy says the role of a man is, what patriarchy says the role of a woman is, we get the various forms of challenges and problems within a society. And patriarchy is also supported by capitalism. So we keep on speaking about the media as if the media is neutral. The media is capitalist driven. So sex sells. We have seen how many shows are about sex, are about witchcraft, and they position men and women in a particular way. And therefore, the conversation that makes it about men versus women is problematic. And in fact, what it has done is that it has taken the wins that feminism and women's movements have done, and it has said, and it's almost as if saying that is not important. What is important now is that recognize the pain that men are going through. Now, while that must be true, when we don't root our analysis in the root causes of where we are, which is patriarchy, we are then going to have a conversation that says, but also women do this. And let me repeat, a patriarchy shapes men and women relationships in a particular way. So when I'm sitting in my home and I am taught that my role in the home is a certain way and a man's role in the home is a certain way, when those roles are disrupted right now by the economic status, they are disrupted by a whole lot of things, we are going to have conflict. The conflict is not man versus woman. The conflict is, are we still in a society that should have the kind of role modeling or conditioning that it has right now? And fact, what all genders need to do is to unlearn all of those patterns.
All right. So we're going to get into, the topic of today. And I want us to steer away from this narrative of men versus women type of discussion. But I want to quickly go to the lines here. We do have Pierre all the way from Gqeberha, who's been holding on for dear life on the line. Pierre, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Please go ahead please go ahead with your comments, sir.
Alicia, I think in this country, it's not just a woman abuse issue, it's a male abuse issue as well. And I feel that it's a financial issue, it's an apartheid issue, it's a social issue. Because if people are confined to a small area, they've been growing up in that area, in a squatter camp or whatever, you have large families growing up in that small environment, and that leads to frustration. And certainly some form of fighting going on in the family home. We even see, I've been to shacks where there's only one room where children see their parents having sex and they grow up in that environment, so they think it's natural to do the same thing when they grow older. And this leads to what's happening in our country about young girls being abused and what have you. And I think as the country is growing out of 30 years of apartheid, our social standing is becoming better. In the next few years, we will see changes in this country.
All right,
because the financial standing of social environment is improving of everybody in the country. Not as fast as we would like, a little bit faster, but it's happening. Changes are happening in this country.
Thank you so much, Pierre, all the way in Kabeja, for those. I mean, Siyabulela, let's talk to that and also what Lebogang brought into fore, because I want us to talk about, I mean, maybe let's look at the mental effects for men that are crucified falsely by, public opinion. Because we do know that these are inherent issues where some women will accuse certain people of rape or of GBV, and that we know that this individual is actually not guilty of such. So what do you say to that? And particularly when it comes to writing about these issues, how are we then as the media aiding and abetting such behavior?
Oh, you just asked me the most difficult question in this panel. I don't know how I'm going to answer that. But again, part of our discourse has largely been one-sided, and then the media feeds into it. Remember, the media is a projection of what is happening in the society. And I agree with my fellow panelists that over the years, one of the things that the media does is that it creates this particular kind of picture of a man. This is how a man must be. This is how a man must behave. And sometimes to the detriment of men themselves and the entire society. And so when you've got cases of men that, because of you asked about men who are falsely accused, and there are, we should not run away from that. And us having discussions around men who are falsely accused should not be seen as invalidating the real issues and cases that are happening there. And so again, to what Mr. Mamela mentioned, it should not only be about numbers, because you can say that maybe half the time, or over 80%, women are being perpetrated against. But then there is that guy, who's falsely accused, and he's got a life that is going to be affected by this.
And it's heavily impacted, yeah.
It is, but we have created such an environment that even when men speak out, only a few people listen, and the environment that we've created is such that we cannot believe men and their pain and their stories. For example, as compared to my female counterpart, you just go on X now and say, Siyabulela did this to me. And the first thing that's going to happen is that we believe her. But if I do the same and say, Lady X did this to me, I'm most likely not to be believed. But again, like Sleb was saying, that it is the patriarchy, and the patriarchy as a system of social stratification, it destroys both men and women, and especially masculinities that are complicit, masculinities that are subordinate, masculinities that are not marginalized, that are not perceived as to be real men. They are all victims of hegemonic masculinity. So that is the kind of situation that we are sitting with. And so I do want to use this platform to encourage men to speak out. Tell your story, tell your truth. There are men who will listen. There are organizations like Craig's that are doing amazing work in this space. So there is help. You don't need to, end up committing suicide, because it has that mental effect. Men kill themselves because there are no avenues. Well, the avenues are there, but we've created an environment that does not allow them to speak out. It is the patriarchy again.
Sandile, but why do men feel like they cannot speak out when we do have voices in the media? We do have organizations like, that belong to Craig, because as just on the back of what Siyabulela was saying, I mean, everything becomes cancel culture. You lose your income, you lose your sense of credibility, social position, professional image is severely tainted.
I think let's be honest and open about this. Men are not afraid to speak out. They do, but their voices are muted or suppressed. I'll give the example of a Patrick Shai, one of the heroes that we had in terms of the gender-based violence. The guy died a lonely man, right? But not only that, if you look at where he started, he launched an organization that was called Kulumandoda. And guess what happened? Over the years, for him to be part of the new narrative, he had to abandon the Kulumandoda to focus on the gender-based narrative that actually says this violence is only against women and children. And we need to change that kind of narrative and include men, because men are part of this society. They have every right to be focused on and to be heard. And I would say it's not true, because when guys are together, they do share their trauma, they do share their pain. That is why that the Empower Men's Conference is such a welcome development. I was there last year. It's a self-healing process for men where they are under one roof and are able to honestly and openly speak about the pain that they experience. Last year I had to see a prominent guy break down and sob after everything that his ex-wife put him through. It's not easy, but he did that in public. So I don't believe that men don't speak. When you are abused, when you are attacked, when you are assaulted, the first person that you speak to is not your mama, it's your friend, your brother, you know. So we do speak, except that the media is part of the narrative that no, men are violent. Yes, men are violent, but as I alluded earlier,
we can't say men though. We need to say some men, and I think we need to be very careful about, you know, the terminology that we use. Joshua, maybe come in there. I mean, talk to us about Empower Men. Do you feel that there needs to be more public platforms, you know, that are actually socially integrated, include women in society as well, so that we all can sit down and understand the issues as well as the challenges that are prevalent between each gender?
Yeah, I think we need to talk more. We need, you know, in empowerment, we believe that we need to move from blame to collaboration, you know, so that as we deal with it as a societal issue, not as a gender issue. So that's why moment that comes to empowerment, they go back with a fire within them, to go to their society, to start organization that could speak to boy child, that could speak to men. Because we're not only speaking about the fruits of gender-based violence, but we're also speaking about what are the roots of gender-based violence. So we really dive in when we're speaking about allow men a safe space, their hearts to speak their struggle. So I think we're in a space where we are heading in the right direction, where people can speak their heart.
Lebogang, maybe just jump in there. And also, I mean, we understand, obviously, we did speak about, you know, the root causes, or whatever we perceive as the root causes of why this such behavior is actually perpetuated in society. But let's talk about what media then can do to try and change the narrative, because what I'm getting from the gentleman is that men are out there talking, but they're talking amongst themselves in their own platforms, and it's not inclusive of women. And I think women also need to shoulder that blame as to why are we not being part of these discussions, to also understand what is going on through the mind of a man, and also be vulnerable enough to tell men that it is okay to be vulnerable with us and just talk about your issues without fear of being judged or being pitted against the other gender.
So I want to confess that I'm finding this conversation very uncomfortable, because I think for me what it does yet again is I'm not understanding the purpose, except to say that we also want to say because it happens on one side, it also happens on the other side. And I think for me, the reason why I start there is the fact that, you know, part of what needs to be done, even outside or away from the media, is the unlearning and the unpacking of the structural imbalances. And some of the effects of the economy and apartheid, I think one of the callers that called tried to put on the table.
Yeah.
And for as long as, if I am to even try to come back to your question, we are basically going to do a tit-for-tat issue and not understanding the root causes, we won't go anywhere. Earlier on, some of the comments that were made were around reporting. And I don't know which social media we are talking about, but the slut shaming that is on social media, and the sheer numbers of unreported cases, uninvestigated causes. If we pit men's experiences against women's experiences, we are actually not going to be building, but we are going to erode the gains that have been made. But be that as it may, I think, generally speaking, the media, and I think some of the debates and conversations in the society are not complex, but they are actually one track. They are not nuanced. The point of the matter is, for families in South Africa that are struggling, let's just take a period in time of COVID, where families are struggling. There are no resources that helps families that are struggling. There are no resources that helps relationships. There are no resources when there is unemployment. Finances is a huge issue in relationships. And when both men and women are socialized in patriarchy, and they then face, whether it's sexual dysfunction, whether it's infertility, whether it is finance, they are going to resort to these very unhelpful ways of being socialized. It's not one versus the other, but it's what is the support that is there that enables them to deal with the challenges that they have.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick ad break and we will be back with Media and Society. Do stay with us. You can still give us those calls or talk to us on X.
And then when as a guy, if you were to, God forbid, experience any form of abuse, do you know where you would need to go to get help?
No, feeling apart. Now, it depends on the nature of the abuse. What is that abuse?
Rape, if your partner is hitting you, those type of things, would you know where to seek for help?
Well, like I said, you could say, most of the time, in case you're a cheater, they don't take it that serious. You could see when you rape by females or even males, so about is serious. So I wouldn't think you could see me going to a police station. It would make sense. So, feeling apart.
That's where the problem is. I don't know where to go, but when you go to the police or you go to anyone close, you know what they'll tell you? You're not man enough. Why don't you hit her? You see? But when you hit her, what happens? They lock you up. The same people tell you to do that. So what do?
Not really. I think the first stop would be the police, but then it's also a 50-50 thing because sometimes we've heard stories of guys being laughed at and ridiculed at police stations, so it's a 50-50 thing.
Me growing up in the church, I would say that the first thing is to first leave, because as I was once told, your first line of defense is your legs, you run. So if you're in a situation where you are getting abused, leave. Because if you don't leave, it will not stop. However, in the instance that after that it doesn't, you're not able to get out of that area, then I'd say that you then have to speak to people that you trust, preferably men, because I find that we are more free when we're speaking with other men. I like speaking with my brother or my dad when I'm facing situations. So I would say find men that you are comfortable with, whether it be in a church, whether it be with your friends, people that you are comfortable speaking to and opening up to, and then discuss a way forward.
Your take on the fact that we have a minister for women and children, but no minister that caters to men?
I understand where it comes from. The fact that we have something like gender-based violence, which is very high, the stats, obviously, as you see in our society. But I think that as the Constitution of South Africa says, that every citizen should have the right to human dignity, right? I believe that we should not just have a minister for women, but also a minister for men. So basically for human beings, addressing societal issues besides SASA, but really dealing with the issues that we have that are outside poverty and things like that that cause collision or fights, conflict in society.
I think it's because in the society that we are in now, men are put in a position where they have to be strong even when they can't, and which is not a good thing, because Men suffer a lot actually because they are not considered to be having feelings.
I believe that we need advocacy and that we should certainly take notice of what is going on around men and gender-based violence against men. It's a very important issue which is not being addressed.
Welcome back. Well, as we wrap up the show, we are still joined by Joshua Mtanyelwa, Empowerment Spokesperson, Lebogang Ramofoko, Executive Director at Oxfam, Craig Wilkinson, Father Nation CEO, and Sandile Memela, who is a writer as well as cultural critic, as well as Siabulela Jendile from Not In My Name. Look, let's go back to the lines. We do have Monwabisi all the way in the Eastern Cape. Monwabisi, thank you so much for joining us. A very good morning to Ufuna ukuthini kuthi today, Dad?
Engifuna ukusho ukuthi ukuze sibe sinwakho ukuthi sisombulule inkinga esinayo ne
yes
kubalulekile into ukubana siqale where it started.
Okay.
Yes, where it started ukuthi ufumanise ukuthi indoda iabusive okanye indoda iabuswa. Yes. Now, iBhayibhile inendima eyayidlala mhlawumbi ebomini bendoda. Ngokuba iBhayibhile isixelele into yokuba indoda yinhloko, yiyo efanele iprovide. Now, from way back far away, before iBhayibhile ifike, ilife yom-Afrika as a man itinjani. Now, ufike ke ngoku i-foreign education kuthi eBhayibhile ethi ke ngoku you have to provide, you have to be doing this, umuntu ongumama abe yi-second hand yakho. Endicingayo into okubana ke ngoku iyeyona nto eyabangela into yobana abantu abangamadoda bahlezi nje becingela into yobana ngabo abafanele beprovayidile bade balibala nento yokubana apha ekuprovideni nalo mntu ongumama unelungelo lakhe. Now ke ngoku sikwi-new dispensation thina ngoku iSouth Africa is got imithetho esilawulwa ngayo yokuba makulingane. Now omama for decades or for centuries they're oppressed. Now if you take a bottle of Coke and you shake it and shake it and shake it and shake it and shake it for a long time, the time you open the cap, it's packed. It's one and the same with the women. Abafazi, they've been suppressed for so long. Now it kept is opened. Uguti babe free to speak, free to do everything. Yeah. So that is where the problem if mana khona singotata because asikwazi ke ngoku ukuyamkela into yokubana silingane nomama ngoba imfundiso ebesiye sayifakwa that is indoctrination mhlawumbe ngatsho i-indoctrination eyenzeka ngeBhayibhile ethi indoda iyinhloko.
Yo. Okay. All right, Monwabisi, Enkosi Tata, thank you so much for that. You know, he raises a very interesting aspect there, Craig. I mean, he's talking about the fact that men grow up knowing that men are providers. Even in the Bible, it's been indoctrinated in them that you are only a man if you are a provider. So men are struggling to actually strike a balance to then assume a sort of an equal role or accept that we are actually equal when it comes to agendas in this type of society. So I want to know from you, Craig, like how do you then even give advice and center conversations around the men that come through to your organization instead of just pitting it as a male versus female type of conversation?
Well, I think the first point of departure must be that we are human first before anything else. Before I'm a man, I'm a human being. Before you're a woman, you're a human being. And that is the most important part of our identity. Humanity, human beings. As soon as we put each other in boxes, we then begin to dehumanize. So ice cream is ice cream, and you get chocolate, you get vanilla, whatever. But the flavor is not the thing. The thing is the ice cream, and the flavor is the flavor.
Yeah.
So we also have to realize that, and I don't think we talk about this enough, men and women are different. We are worthy of equal opportunity, worthy of equal respect, equally valid, equal in every way in the sight of God and man, except the fact that we are different. So what drives a man is biologically different from what drives a woman. We're more the same than we're different, but the differences don't mean that less than or more than, or superior, inferior. We can no longer define, and we shouldn't, a man or woman by the role they play. No, a woman can be the primary breadwinner and a man can be perfectly fine. That does not define a man. What defines a man is the character with which he lives out his life. So we talk about, and I have a slight challenge with the word patriarchy because no one really knows what that means. We throw this word, but we need to define exactly what does patriarchy mean. One of the things, the criticisms of it is that power imbalances are bad. Power imbalances are not bad. Power imbalances exist in the universe and always will. When a man marries a woman, the man is physically stronger than the woman. That's a power imbalance. You can't take that away. You mustn't make the woman pump iron and the man eat nothing so that they become... What matters is what the man does with that power differential.
True.
In a couple, you always have one earning more than the other. Now, it can be the man or the woman. That is a power imbalance. The woman has more money than the man. So what matters is not the power imbalance, is what does the woman do with the power that she has financially. The fact is that evil exists in men and women, black and white, Russian, American, equally. It exists in all of us, the capacity for evil. It manifests differently in men and women. Women abuse generally with their tongues. Men abuse with their fists. So men's abuse is far more destructive than women physically and sexually. But we mustn't underestimate the power of the tongue to also destroy and bring down.
Absolutely.
So this must never be a war where it's men against women. This must be a dance where we teach men and women to dance together because we are equal co-creators of the world in the future.
Absolutely.
You exist, I exist because a man and a woman got together and they created us. Our future and our world exists when a man and a woman come together as equal partners, but different partners, to co-create the future.
Well said there, Craig. Let me go back to the lines. We've got Sizwe from Polokwane on the line. Sizwe, thank you so much and a good morning. Please go ahead with your comments, sir.
Good day.
Good morning, Sizwe.
Good day. I would like to start by saying the problem begins when we say gender-based violence. It was supposed to be violence. We were supposed to be taught that violence is not a way to solve problems. But now the violence is given a gender now. Also, if you were taught from a young age that violence is not a way to solve our problems, violence is not. These men are being violated every day, but they are quiet.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Sizwe. Thank you so much, Sizwe. Sandile, and I mean, just come there because I know you've been driving this point like the whole time that, look, violence is violence and whoever is perpetuating it should be called as the, as the aggressor. So talk to us about that and let's stop defining these roles as to the woman did this or the men did that.
I agree. Violence is violence and it's less important as to who perpetrates the violence. I think we need to find a way to change the narrative and take it out of these gender stereotypes.
True.
And I think if we're to begin to do that, we will then be able to acknowledge and recognize that, as the caller has said, violence is bad. Violence is bad. And in terms of the narrative, look, we live in this patriarchal society, this capitalist society, and everybody inside it is a victim. And I guess what I want to say as my parting shot here is, it's one thing to report on the statistics of women who have been raped. Do we know the statistics, for instance, of men who have been falsely accused of rape? We don't know about that. And we need to change the way we look at these things, and the media can lead us on that.
All right. Joshua, in closing, I mean, we here as the media, what would you like to see from us going forward in relation to this very, very charged and emotional topic?
For me, I would like to see the media really reporting this societal problem in a balanced way. But also I would like to see the media being more on the teaching space. For instance, you'll have a space where they teach about the whole issue of gender-based violence. But after that, there are 3 movies that will come in that is of violent of nature. And for me, that's a contradiction. So there needs to be a sense of balance. So that's why empowerment, let's get into it. and talk about them and allowing them to chart the cost and take responsibility and have that fire to go to community and do something.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, we lost one of our guests there, Lebogang Ramafoko from Oxfam earlier on. Gentlemen, that brings us to a wrap of today's program. Thank you so much. I know this was quite an emotional topic and we need more time. So we're basically saying let's encourage men to be not afraid to come out and speak in whatever platforms and those avenues that are available, and not feel like, you know, they are being put in a corner and being told, well, listen, you need to be big, bold and masculine, and you therefore you cannot address these issues. Gentlemen, thank you so much once again. Joshua Mdanyelwa from Empowerment, Lebogang Ramafoko was with Oxfam, Craig Wilkinson from Father Nation, Sandile Memela, who's a writer and a cultural critic, as well as Usiabulela Gentile from Not In My Name. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you at home for watching our show, Media and Society. We hope that you will join us again, same time and the same place next week. From myself and the rest of the team, good day and stay blessed.